Hey, this is Evan Longoria of your San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go, Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is TortureCast. Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, July 2nd, 2018, and this is episode 146 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, on this wonderful afternoon. Joining me from Georgia, where I guess it's a little warm right now, isn't it? Eric Nathanson, what's up?
Yeah, I'm hoping the podcast listeners, Giants fans, I'm sorry if you hear a fan in the background, but it is hot in Georgia. And, I mean, I expected it to be hot. But I've got a whole new podcast wardrobe. I'm sitting in my underwear ready to talk Giants.
This is why we don't do a video podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Yeah, so you can all take that visual and exactly do what you want with it. And, I mean, trust me, it's better than sweating buckets. It is brutal. The humidity is something else, and it's a little different than Florida. Florida, there was, like, patterns. Here, there's like no rhyme or reason. It's just you're constantly under a wet blanket. So you do what you got to do. You get through the summer.
You know, I didn't even think about it, but I'm working from home today, and I'm wearing my boxers right now with a T-shirt. So, hey, you get double underwear today, people. Wow. No free balling today, though. No free balling. No commando. Oh, crap. Okay. Anyway, enough
with the underwear
TMI
podcast.
There. Yeah, this is not a lingerie podcast. We're here to talk about the Giants. So holy shit, Eric, this is exactly what we were hoping was going to happen. They were going to get their second half in gear, and they just passed the halfway mark last week, and sure enough, they have. They are now coming off a sweep of the Arizona Diamondbacks in Arizona. Of course, they had, I think, the worst road record in the National League prior to this road trip, and they currently have the best home record in the National League, so they definitely are Jekyll and Hyde this year. They're 45-40 now, 5 games above 500, second place, only 2.5 games back of Arizona, and in a virtual tie with the Dodgers, and 1.5 back for the wild card, which we don't give a crap about right now. But what are your feelings on this team? They've won 10 out of 12. They're hot.
Yeah, it's the pitching has stepped up big time. The Giants improved their ERA by their 2.69 ERA improvement from May to June. They dropped their ERA by 2.69, is the second best in the history of baseball from May to June. Only the 2002 A's had a better improvement. And that's where it all starts. You know, we all talk about hitting and timely hitting, but it all starts with the starting rotation. And these guys and the pitching has just been on fire. I know there's games like yesterday where the bullpen had to come out, and last Thursday where they blew it against Colorado in the 9th inning. But overall, guys like Rodriguez and Suarez and Bumgarner are keeping the Giants in these games, and they're finding a way to win. This is what good teams do, is they take these opportunities, and we're finally seeing it from the Giants. You know, all the worry and concern that they're just a 500 team is starting to go by the wayside because, I mean, like you said, 10 out of 12. They're 8-2 over their last 10, which is the best mark in baseball. They are the only team to take a series from Arizona since May 28th, and they've done it twice, one at home, and then they swept them on the road. So they're just starting to play Giants baseball. You know, it's what we've come to expect. Good pitching, timely hitting, and good defense.
I know they've had their struggles this year, getting swept in 4 by Philly. They've had other similar series against other teams not in their division. But you'll definitely take a sweep of the Diamondbacks if you're going to exchange that with a sweep against the hands of the Phillies, because the Diamondback series is much more important. So, yeah, they're holding up their end of the bargain right now. And I think one thing that is shocking to me, and I had heard this stat the other day when they completed June. Of course, they finished June with an 18-10 record, but you know, they finished that 2016 season on a whimper. They had the best record in baseball at the All-Star break that year. Everybody thought, this is it, even year. They're going back to the World Series. They did make the playoffs through the wild card, and we all know how they lost to the Cubs, and who knows what would have happened without blowing that through and leading the ninth. Still a little sore in us Giants fans' arms, but you have a little stat here that I had heard, and it's amazing it makes sense, but when you think about it, it's a long time to go this long without a winning month, right?
That 18-10 June was their first winning month since that June of 2016 during that season. And I mean, every month after that was at 500 or below. And we're not counting March of this year when they were 2-1 against the Dodgers before they, evened out at 2-2. And then if you combine them, they're at 500 on that one. But this is the first winning month since June 2016. And it's weird because June swoon and Giants have always been synonymous with each other. Mm-hmm. Back in 2014 when they did win the title, June was like their worst month of the year. I remember the joke that one of the Giants Twitters, I can't remember who it was, said, June will be the month we all skip over on the DVD. And it turned out to be true that year. Mm-hmm. So it's a different team and a different way they're doing it this year. And part of it is they're beating teams in their division. They have a winning record or are at 500 against every team in the division, which I didn't even realize.
That's exactly what I was referring to earlier. It's great because, I mean, if they're kind of swapping those NL Central East with the NL West kind of record, who knows how far back they would be right now. So you have to play within your division. You have 19 games against every single divisional opponent. So that makes up basically half of your schedule. And they're doing well right now. This is what's kind of kept them in the ball game. They're starting pitching, but specifically versus opponents. They're playing well against their interdivisional opponents, and it continues again the next 3 games here in Colorado.
And the other interesting thing is they're on the road, and you mentioned it, that they had the worst road record in baseball. They're now up to 19-26 on the road. And their 4 series wins on the road have all been against good teams. They beat the Angels when they were hot. They swept the Braves, who are absolute contenders. They took 2 or 3 from the Nationals. And then they just swept the Diamondbacks. So they're stepping up their game when they need to. And I think that shows in, you talk about the dichotomy of like the NL East and Central. It shows when they played teams like the Marlins. They went 3-4 against the Marlins this year, and it very much could have been 2-5 or 1-6.
Yeah.
So they're getting the job done against the good teams. It's just the hopefulness of the second half is that they take care of business against these other crappy opponents, because they are definitely still going to be facing, lower level teams. Like I don't think they've played the Mets yet this year. Like who else is bad this year? Well, everybody's bad.
No, their second half schedule, at least kind of if you do an RPI ranking, is better than their first half. It's easier than their first half. Not only that, but they have more home games remaining than road games the rest of the year. So on paper, everything is favorable for the Giants right now, especially since they just got Bum back, and he looks like he's kind of shaping into form, and they may have Cueto coming back here soon. There are a lot of reasons to be optimistic right now.
I mean, Bum has 16 straight innings of shutout ball right now. Granted, he's starting tonight in Colorado, and Colorado is the house of horrors that it is. Yeah. And even Bum struggles in Colorado sometimes. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he always just seems to labor more. He ends up in the stretch more because, Colorado puts the bat on the ball generally. But, it's him stepping up and coming in the clubhouse. And then you talk about it, you got in the notes right here. I mean, there's certain guys that have stepped into the rotation, and they have basically saved the Giants' season, because this could have gone haywire. 3 months ago, we were talking about how starting pitching was a liability, and now they have so much depth because of the rookie pitchers.
Yeah, we got Tarek Rodriguez, son of Pudge, and it's really cool. Pudge, I think, came out to a couple of games. In his last 2 starts, 13 1/3 innings pitched, he's only given up 1 run. The Giants have also won his last 4 starts, during which he has a 2.16 ERA over those 4 games. And then, of course, there's Suarez, his last 2 games, 11 2/3 innings pitched, only 2 runs. And he's 4-2 with a 2.62 ERA in his last 6 starts. Those 2 guys, I mean, look at that. That's 10 starts right there where they have basically a 2.5 ERA. And they've won almost every single one of those games. I think 8 out of 10 of those games. So, yeah, these 2 rookies in particular are really, really carrying the Giants right now. And if it wasn't for them, if they were even just 500, they'd be 5.5, 6.5 back right now.
Yeah, Hank Schulman wrote a really good piece before this series against Arizona, pointing out that the Giants could come into Arizona and they could leave anywhere from 8.5 to 6.5 to 4.5 to 2.5 games back. And the worst case scenario was that 8.5 games back. And the Giants just absolutely stepped on the throat of the Diamondbacks the last 2 days. Friday night, Austin Slater stepped up, another rookie contributing. That's part of it, is they're getting contributions from everywhere. Hunter Pence with a double yesterday, a pinch hit double to drive in 2 runs. Corey Guerin coming in with the bases loaded and bailing out Derek Holland with a beautiful play made by Brandon Crawford. And the key to that was Guerin actually getting off the mound and getting to first base. Mm-hmm. If they don't make that play, the Diamondbacks put up a crooked number and it could go haywire from there, but it absolutely didn't. It's like everybody is stepping up and contributing in some different way. And yes, there's hiccups along the way. Sam Dyson gave up the lead on Thursday. Melanson had a little bit of a struggle yesterday, but overall, even Austin Jackson, he hit a double and scored an insurance run yesterday, and he's been languishing on the end of the bench for like 2 months at this point.
Yeah, it's all these little things that makes baseball so much fun, but also makes it very infuriating. I mean, you brought up some examples of small things that have helped the Giants win, and even though they've won 10 out of 12, you could still point to that game the other night, where LeMahieu hit the home run off of Dyson. If they won that game, suddenly they've won, 11 out of 12. But it goes back and forth. That's kind of the ebb and flow, of the Giants. Last night's game, or yesterday's game, I was out for most of it. I was listening on the radio, actually, and the Giants, of course, had a nice, comfortable lead. I was listening when it was 8-5, heard them score 9-5, went into the store, assuming they'd close it out. Came back out of the store, got in my car, and Melanson was pitching. He had 2 outs and no one on. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is going to be one of those rare, easy saves. It wasn't technically a save at the time, but rare, easy closeouts. And, of course, it was base hit, base hit, base hit. And it was just like, are you kidding me? And, of course, Jake Lamb was coming up as the tying run, and Will Smith came in and closed the door. So, or was it Watson? I'm sorry. Who was it?
No,
yesterday?
It was Will Smith. Yeah, it was Will Smith.
Who came in. So
that's 2 saves over the weekend for Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith has just been absolutely invaluable, and we'll get to some of his stats in a little bit. But this is the shot in the gut that the Giants needed, and like Hank had pointed out in his article, it could have been as bad as 8.5 out if they had gotten swept. But even if they take 2 out of 3. And they could have lost one of those games. A couple were obviously very tight. Yesterday's game could have gone in any number of directions when you have a high-scoring game. They would have been 4.5. They lose 2 out of 3. They're 6.5 back. So every little bit counts against the guys that you're chasing.
And the Rockies did them some favors by taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers over the weekend, too. And you mentioned they're virtually in a tie with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have played 2 less games than the Giants. They have 1 fewer win and 1 fewer loss, so, they're percentage points ahead. But 45-40, what the Giants are at, that's their high water mark of the season. It's the first time they've been 5 games over 500. They finally got out of that stretch of getting to 500 and getting 1 game over and then falling back to 500 and falling under it. And the fact that they have all these games at AT&T Park before the All-Star break is what did it. That 7-3 homestand before this Diamondback series, I mean, it very well could have been a 9-1 homestand. The first game of the homestand was the Hunter Strickland game, and the last game of the homestand was, the LeMahieu homer off of Dyson. There was one other game where they just got shut down by the Padres, and that happens. It just happens. But they could have had a 9-1 homestand. That 7-3 homestand was the best 10-game homestand they've had since they went 8-2 on a homestand back in September of 2012. So that's how long it's been since AT&T Park has been the true advantage that they need to be. And finally, the Giants have that lined up, and they're going to Colorado. It is the House of Horrors, but it's comfortable right now. They're rolling. The bullpen is kind of rested. If you look at the guys that were used yesterday, it was Guerin, it was Johnson, it was Melanson, and Melanson honestly did not pitch that bad yesterday. 2 of the 3 hits came off good pitches. There was only 1 that he really left over the plate, and it was just unfortunate.
That really was a fly ball, and
yes.
McCutcheon
it was
wasn't
unfortunate.
positioned correctly.
There's nothing you can do about it. If you're shading to right center field and the ball goes down the line, I mean, it's a tough play to make. And thankfully Will Smith was able to get up and get in there. Watson was used yesterday too. But, generally speaking, Moranta will be ready to go today, and I'm sure Smith only faced the one batter. He'll be able to go again today. With Bumgarner starting, that's like the ace in the back pocket that the Giants always feel like they have. When they worry about bullpen, the horse is coming out. Bumgarner's coming out, so they don't have to worry about it as much. It's down the line when they come back home, and we'll get to that as far as what they have to do with the rest of the pitching staff.
Yeah, I think they're going into Colorado actually feeling very, very confident right now. It is the House of Horrors. They've had good series there, bad series there. They got bum pitching today, so they're going in with a whole hell of a lot of confidence. And another thing that you noted is it is their high water mark of the year, and it has felt like they get back up to 500 and then they slip under the surface, just like you're treading water, right? And you just can't quite keep up your head above water. Your face is just always underwater. You're just struggling for air. They're finally at a point where I think they're treading water comfortably now. They're ready to get out of the water a little bit more. And just for comparative purposes, 2010, their first World Series year, was kind of similar. When they hit the halfway mark, they pretty much had the same record. I think they were a game better than they were in 2010. And as of right now, after 85 games, the Giants were exactly the same. They were 45-40 at this point in 2010. But they were 5 games back and in 4th place at the time. So they're actually in a better situation right now. And we all know how that season ended. So for Giants fans out there, don't think that a 500 team can't make the playoffs, especially right now. They're 2.5 back. They got plenty of opportunity and plenty of time left. So this is looking pretty good.
This past weekend, and if they can take 2 of 3 in Colorado, is the turning point. I know the 7-3 homestand was good, but this is the turning point. They were 16-26 on the road before this road trip, the worst in the National League, tied with the Marlins for the worst in the National League. Now they're better than them, thankfully, finally. But this is the time to look back. If we're looking at a team that makes the playoffs, this is the weekend and this is the road trip that we're going to look back on and say, okay, that's when the Giants got it together. And they need to get over the mental hump in Colorado because they've lost 11 of their last 13 contests in Colorado. And, having Bumgarner go out tonight, they're hoping to set that tone, and they're poised to do it. And the Rockies, they're floundering a little bit. They're a few games under 500, and I don't know if you heard this over the weekend, but after the Giants series, Nolan Arenado came out and said that he is tired of losing. He's tired of coming to the ballpark and losing. He's tired of the fact that the team doesn't seem – he said when you're losing, those weeks are harder because you're struggling. You feel like you're hurting the team more than helping it. This is an article on The Athletic that came out on Friday. He pointed out that he said we can talk about it all we want, but how are we going to turn it around? Blah, blah, blah. We haven't yet. That doesn't sound like a man who's too confident and a team that's too confident. So the Rockies, as much as they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers this weekend, they look like a team that's ready to be buried. And the Giants, if they can knock them out of the race and keep this a 3-team race, it helps their chances going forward. And it's also nice to hear that Arenado is tired of Colorado because maybe he'll want to come to San Francisco in a couple years. Yeah, he's a free agent after 2019. Yeah.
Considering what's been going on with Evan Longoria. I agree. I mean, kind of get rid of the chaff, right? Trim the fat. Let's get all these other teams, the Padres and the Rockies, out of here. I mean, the Dodgers are here to stay. The Diamondbacks look like they're here to stay, although you never know. And the Giants hopefully are here to stay. So it looks like it could be shaping up to be a 3-team race. Here's the other thing, though. Last year, 3 teams from the NL West made the playoffs. That's not happening this year, is it?
No. Absolutely not. You got to look at the Central Division and see Milwaukee and Chicago. Milwaukee's probably going to snag one of those. And then you got to look to the East, and the Phillies and the Braves and the Nats are fighting it out. So it looks like the West is probably going to be the only way any of these 3 teams get into the playoffs. Yeah. We're not going to get a Colorado-Arizona wild card game again, and thank for that. Jesus.
Yeah, that was awful, wasn't it?
It was so tough to watch 3 NL West teams in the playoffs last year and know that the Giants were 64-98. Like that record is burned into my brain. And you think about that. The Giants won 64 games last year. They've already won 45 games this year. 19 more wins than they matched last year's total. They could do that by the beginning, I don't want to say the beginning of August, maybe mid-August.
Yeah.
And that just shows what kind of a different team this is. When we get towards not the All-Star break, towards the trade deadline, we'll have to discuss whether or not they are going to look to add. There's luxury tax issues and things like that. But you mentioned that 2010 team, and I said it before the season. That's what this team reminds me of, that 2010 team. Now, I didn't expect the pitching to come through like it has, but the hitting is really keeping the line moving, constantly getting men on base. You know, they still are, I don't want to say they're struggling with runners in scoring position because they've improved that, but they're still not at the top of the list when it comes to that. But this team is poised to do things. When you got guys like Austin Slater hitting 3 doubles in a game and driving in 2 runs, you know, nobody expected that 3 months ago. We all thought it was, and Gorky's. I mean, who thought Gorky's was going to take over to the job to make Steven Duggar a moot point? Like, I was ready for Duggar to come up, and then Gorky's, he's just taking a stranglehold. The guy had 5 home runs entering this season. He has 10.
He has 10 this year alone. This is insane. I don't know what's going on. I mean, if he gets another hot streak, he could take over the team lead from Belt and Longoria in home runs. It's absolutely out of nowhere.
That's the thing. Longo is second on the team in homers and third in runs driven in, and he hasn't played in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. It's not in the notes, but since you mentioned Slater, and he was pivotal in that 2-1 win, of course, he drove in both runs with those doubles. What do you think happened with Mac? I mean, he obviously started the season just on a tear, and everybody said, okay, he's finally arrived. Then, boom, he gets the concussion, he goes down. He's out for a much longer period of time than I think anyone anticipated, you know, given the 7 to 10 day kind of concussion protocol that he had cleared. But he had all these rehab starts and everything like that. And he just came back up and I think he hit 1 bomb since he returned and was hitting around 200 or below. So do you think it's just, you know, a coincidence thing? Do you think it was just him being down for too long? Do you think it's psychological? I mean, I'm not asking you to peer into Mac's brain, but just if you were to guess, what do you think happened?
I think Mac is a quadruple A player and no better. I have come to this conclusion. He is never going to cut it in the big leagues. He's always going to look like a stud in Triple A, but every time he gets his chance, he's just flailing. And there have been times since they sent Mac down where certain hitters like Pence, you know, I mean, you look back to Pence's walk-off hit. That could have been Mac in that situation last week. You look to Pence's, you know, pinch hit double yesterday. That could have been Mac in that situation. And frankly, I'm more confident with Pence at the plate than I was with Mac Williamson, because at least Pence is going to make contact. He's not going to continue to swing at those pitches in the dirt. And I know the concussion, you know, we saw it with Belt. He had a real tough time coming back from the concussion. And we've seen it with other players, you know, guys like Mike Matheny, their career ended because of it. But I know it had a factor in it, but I think it just it exposed what Mac really is. He's a quadruple A player, and he's nothing better than that. And I don't think he's ever going to be better than that. New swing, old swing, you know, Fred Flintstone swing, it's not going to matter. You know, and it's ironic because Hunter switched to his swing, and he's since gone back to his old swing, and he's making more contact and putting the ball in play.
Yeah, it's funny to see these young guys and veterans switching their swings and having a little bit of success right away, but then it kind of just tailing off. It's kind of like, you know, when you get a little tired of the way your house is decorated, and then you rearrange the furniture, and it looks great for about 2 weeks, and then you're like, I'm bored again. I want to change it again.
That's why I had it the other way in the first place.
Yeah,
you know,
I really like the feng shui the other way.
Right, exactly. And you know, with Pence, I got to give him props for the role that he has taken upon himself. He knows he's on the end of the bench. He knows he might only get 1 at bat per game. That he needs to be ready when he's called upon, and he's coming through. It's not just. You know, it's not just Pence is a great clubhouse guy anymore. He's legitimately coming through as a pinch hitter, and it makes the Giants' job easier, because if he was not doing this, you know, there'd be discussions about what to do with Pence. And we don't have to have that discussion anymore. He's accepted his role, and the Giants have accepted his role. And, you know, Slater this is my one gripe. Slater gets 3 hits on Friday, and Bochy sits him on Saturday. Mm-hmm. He claims he's going to play the hot bat, and then he still goes and sits him in place of Alan Hansen because of pitching matchups. Like, give the kid a chance. He was tearing up the Pacific Coast League. Give him a chance. He's a good enough outfielder, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure he's going to be in the lineup tonight because I'm sure Hansen's going to be at third because Pablo's going to need a day off after getting dinged in the elbow yesterday, which was thankfully just a contusion.
Yeah.
But, Slater's going to have a chance to make his hay, and I hope that he steps up so that we don't have to worry about putting Hunter Pence back out in left field and things like that because, Austin Jackson's gotten sent to the end of the bench, and Pence has already surpassed him as far as getting the pinch hits and, getting that role. And that just goes right back to the contributions coming from everywhere on this team. Like, there's literally not a guy in the lineup that I can't think of that hasn't had an important role this season. You can think of Hundley and his home runs and his 4-hit game earlier this year. You can think of Kutch with his 6-hit game and the walk-off. You can think of I can't really think of anything with Longoria. Posey got his swing back this past weekend. He'd been struggling a little bit. He was hitting like 250 over the week before that, and he started to come around. You got Belts, who is again coming around, and Crawford, who is probably in the top 5 MVP discussion in the National League right now.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He's just been off the charts, and we'll talk about All-Star voting here in a second. Hunter Pence, clearly has accepted his role, but we all knew that he's a team player, and that's what's so great about him. He knows the writing's on the wall. He's going to, most likely survive being on the roster the rest of the year. I know there was a lot of talk earlier from a lot of Giants fans saying, oh, we got to DFA him and all that stuff. And I think the Giants were at a point where if he was a player not of the same veteran stature that he is, and also what he's contributed to this team over his 4 or 5 years here, they probably would have DFA'd him, or if he had a much lower salary or what have you. It's one of those things the Giants tend to do is kind of reward their players on the back end of their careers. They did it with Lincecum. They've done it with Kane. They've kind of are doing that now with Hunter Pence the last 2 years, where his production has significantly dropped. Yes, part of it's his salary, but they could eat that no matter what in lieu of getting someone up. But I don't know if you're going to get too much more production out of AAA. You have your Austin Slater and your Mac Williamson right now, but I just think they owe it to the guy to at least keep him on board. And look what he's done here this last week. He does have some value left. Maybe not. He's not going to hit 300 this year. He's just barely hitting over 200. But he knows his role, and he knows his tenure with the Giants is over at the end of the season. He's not going to be a Giant in 2019. It's a little bit sad and depressing, but this is the cycle of life, the circle of life. Yeah. In baseball, we move on. But it was kind of fun because I'm a bit of a gamer and I watch a lot of streamers. And he was streaming from Twitch the other day. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday before their night game. And he was just streaming from his hotel room, just by himself, drinking copious bottles of water. Oh my God, I think I saw him drink about 4 huge bottles of water in like 10 minutes. But yeah, he was just streaming and he was answering all of the fans' questions. Most of them were about the game and not about the Giants. But it was fun. I threw a question in there about the game and he answered it there live on the air. He's a fun guy to kind of watch and follow, him and Lexi. And I wish him and Lexi nothing but the best. But he's still got a little bit left in the tank, and let's hope he can have another couple of magical moments left this season. And I'll play a couple highlights when we get to him and who's hot, who's not. The other thing about the Giants that's interesting is they are the only 500 or better team that actually has a negative run differential. They've been outscored by 12 runs this year. And, that's a result of a lot of blowout wins and a lot of blowout losses and a lot of close wins. That's kind of where that comes from. Because even though they have 5 more wins than losses, on average, their wins are by fewer runs than their losses are. So it's an interesting statistic. Well,
they're 14 and 13 in 1-run games, which is really, you look, there's like the Mariners are out there. They've won like 25 1-run games. So, the Giants are at about average, which is what you want to be because it's more of a thing. But like, I'm just looking through it. On April 15th, they lost to the Padres 10-1. On April 25th, they lost to Washington 15-2. On April 28th, they lost 15-6 to the Dodgers. They lost to Philly 11-0 during that series. They lost to Pittsburgh 11-2. They lost to Philly again, 11-3. You know, they lost to Houston, 11-2. So those games, they're totally skewing the numbers. And I get that you can kind of get a feel for how a team is based on that, you know, Pythagorean, because you look at Baseball Reference and they take the Pythagorean win-loss from the runs scored, runs allowed.
Yeah, and they're under 500 with that, huh?
Yeah, 41 and 44. But, I mean, it doesn't matter if you lose a game by 9 runs or 2 runs. You lost the game, and it's not going to break your heart, you know, after that happens. The Giants will just move on and do what they need to do. A few of these big losses were followed by victories. Like the one against the Dodgers, they lost the first game of a doubleheader by 9 runs, and then they won the second game. That was the Pablo game. You know, it's a good indicator of how a team plays, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It will even out by the end of the season, and, you know, it's tough to account for those games they win by, like yesterday was a close game, but they won by 3 runs. So it's not going to be reflected in that, you know, 1-run win-loss category. So when people are looking up close games and tough wins, that's not going to be accounted for, even though it was that kind of victory. So it's a little misleading, I think. And, you know, we also look back on it. They haven't had any of these games since May 29th was the last time they lost a game by 7 or more runs. They lost to Colorado 11-4. So they went through the entire month of June with their biggest loss being a 4-run deficit to the San Diego Padres on June 22nd. So, you know, they're kind of evening it out. I'm looking at that little bar graph at the top, and there's like all these giant red marks in the first couple months, and then the gap closes a little bit. So I think it shows that the Giants are a better team than what they had shown. But, I mean, who's to say? Because a lot of this does even out. And, you know, I know the Dodgers have a great, you know, run differential. The Cubs are the best in baseball with run differentials. They just scored over 10 runs in 4 straight games, but they still don't even lead their division.
Yeah,
so
shows you the variable nature of it. And it's an indication of success, but not a direct link to success.
Right. And, you know, as long as the Giants keep winning, you know, you got to win those 2-0, 1-0, 3-1 ball games. And as long as the Giants keep doing that, they're going to keep staying where they're at. And I think they're currently on their longest winning streak. No, they're not, because they blew that game against the Colorado.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're not going to score, you know, constantly over 10 runs a game. They're not going to bludgeon opponents to death. That's just not the Giants' key to success. You know, like I said, it's the same thing it's always been. It's good pitching, timely hitting, and good defense. And the Giants' mantra and Bruce Bochy's mantra is keep the line moving. And as long as they put up crooked numbers, an inning or 2 per game, they're going to keep winning ball games.
Yeah. A little less torture in the games would be nice. We've had a few of those lately. The 7-0 yesterday until the very, very last inning. But yeah, it's been more comfortable sailing, shall we say. This is more of the team we were hoped to have seen throughout the year. So we are heading into the All-Star break soon. You've noted here that voting ends this Thursday. So we have basically the second to the last update. Why don't you tell us how the Giants are doing in that regard?
Well, right now, Buster Posey is leading the catchers. He's got almost 1.4 million votes, and Wilson Contreras is gaining ground because Buster had about a 500K lead 2 weeks ago, and Contreras is sliding in there at 1.2, but Buster's still leading the way for catchers. And MVP Brandon Crawford is blowing the competition away at shortstop. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at this thing, and there are Braves all over this. The Braves fans are coming out voting in droves. And Dansby Swanson, their shortstop, is in second at 1.1 million votes, and Crawford has double that. So he's finally getting the recognition around baseball from fans that he deserves. And if you look at the Giants and you wonder about all-stars on their team, you know, like Joe Panik is 4th in second baseman, Brandon Belts is 3rd in first baseman, and Belts, there's no way Belts going to catch Freddie Freeman or Anthony Rizzo. No. Freeman has over 2 million more votes than him, and Freeman deserves the nod. I think Brandon Belt might get the manager's nod from Dave Roberts when it comes time to it, because he's probably the only other guy on the Giants, aside from maybe a Tony Watson, who's deserving of an all-star nod. And it looks like Crawford and Posey should probably lock that up. And it's almost a shame because you want them to get rest, you know. And the all-star game's in Washington this year. So the Giants, they wrap up the first half at home against the A's. So Crawford, Posey, and hopefully Watson and Belt, they're going to have to fly to Washington, have the All-Star activity, and then they got to fly all the way back cross country because they open up in Oakland against the A's after the All-Star break. So you kind of wish they'd get the extra day of rest, and thankfully they don't start playing again until that Friday. But, I mean, it's nice to see Crawford getting the recognition he deserves. You know, you pointed it out when we were talking before the show. Nick Markakis is leading the outfielder vote. And, I mean, sure, the guy's having an okay year, but there are definitely more deserving players like a Kyle Schwarber or Jason Hayward. And, yes, I know my Cubs side is showing a little. Those guys are more deserving than Nick Markakis. Even Matt Kemp's having a good year.
Hey, that Odubel Herrera kid is just amazing this year too.
Yes, but people know names, and the Braves fans are stuffing the ballot box. And you know what? As Giants fans, we can relate. We've done that in the past.
That's the flaw and or the beauty of the voting system, depending on your viewpoint. You know, if you are a Giants fan when it benefited us in the past, great. You know, if you're a Braves fan right now, you think it's great. You know, it's hard to see this because you got Markakis leading the NL outfielders. He actually has the second most votes in the National League, right behind Freddie Freeman, another Brave. And then they have all three outfielders in the top 6 of the voting. So it's kind of like. But look, the other flip side is, well, other teams can do the same thing. If their fans aren't supporting their team in the same way, well, then that's their own fault, right? I mean, and with the Giants, it's going to be interesting because even though Kurt Suzuki, sorry, I still laugh at that, is third for the Braves, you do have Contreras who made up that a lot of room last week. So, yeah, he's only got, 140,000 vote lead. And if he made up 500,000 in 1 week, is well within the target range. So I'm hoping that Giants fans are going to stuff the ballot boxes. I did my 25 yesterday. I'll probably do another, set today. I know our little 25 votes a day doesn't mean much, but when it adds up, across millions of fans, then it does. But let's say if the Buster Posey doesn't make it and Contreras starts, what do you think Dave Roberts would do for backup catcher? Do you think he would go with someone else?
I think he goes Real Muto from the Marlins.
Yeah, I'm thinking this exact same thing. Real Muto has just had an outstanding year. And he deserves it. He actually deserves it more than Buster Posey. So I think that would be interesting. If Contreras makes it, I think Buster Posey's not going to the All-Star game, which is not the worst thing in the world. But, it's just nice to see him go just to represent the Giants. But it does look like, no doubt, Crawford has more than double the votes. He has a more than 1 million vote lead on Dansby Swanson. Which is unbelievable. So he's a lock. And then I hope Belt makes it, even though he missed some time with concussion. And then certainly one of the relievers, like a Watson or what have you. So get your votes out there, guys, and don't complain if Buster Posey doesn't make it. Because
it might be a blessing in disguise. Buster has had to take some extra days off this year. His back's been bulky at times. And thankfully, Hundley has given him that chance. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Hundley win the Willie Mack Award again this year after winning it last year. He's just that guy. And, if Posey gets a few days off, that's not a bad thing. All-Star games are nice, and it's great to look back, when we, you introduce, 6-time All-Star, 2012 National League MVP,
2010 Rookie of the Year, and 3-time World Series champion,
It's good to list those off, but when you're in the thick of it, it may not be so bad. Like, I'm not trying to say don't vote for Posey. Seriously, if you want to see Posey play in the All-Star game, vote for him. But, he may benefit from a little bit of rest because the Giants, they have a chance to go on a tear here towards the end. And like I said, he's starting to get his swing back. But, it's All-Star voting. It's fans, and we are fans, so we do want to see our guys. It's kind of disappointing that Anthony Rizzo is ahead of Belt because Rizzo's not having as good of a year as Belt is. He's been better lately, but Belt's having a better year. Like Cody Bellinger is 4th in All-Star voting, and he is not having the year that he had last year. Ozzie Albies is leading in second base for the Braves when, frankly, Scooter Gennett and even Javier Baez are having better years than he is. Yeah. Joe Panic's on the list at 4th, and I love you, Joe Panic, but he's not having an All-Star year.
No, of course not.
he's been scuffling as of late, and I feel like again he's a guy who started to hit the ball hard again this past weekend. So I mean, if we want to see them, we got to vote for him. I wouldn't be shocked to see somebody like Posey on the final ballot if he doesn't make it, or somebody like Belt on the final ballot if he doesn't make it. You know, a couple years ago, that's how Belt got into the game. I think that was 2015 actually, and he got like 10 million votes, and that was another example of Giants fans stuffing the ballot box. So if we have our chance, do our part. But you know, there's a bigger picture, and you know, I'd rather see certain guys rest than have to overextend themselves, because none of these guys are going to be in the home run contest. You know, it's not going to be. This isn't like 2012 when Pablo and Melky dominated the All-Star game. Matt Cain started, and you know, it was like Giants. No, this team's more like the 2010 team where, you know, they're kind of going to sneak in under the radar for a little bit, and then people will see what they have. So I'm happy to see Crawford getting the props he deserves.
Yeah, no, it's great to see him. To think that he was hitting $179 at the end of April, so pretty cool to see. Hitting 313 right now, I believe. All right, before we get to who's hot and who's not, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. We do have Cueto and Shark coming back relatively soon. So Cueto just recently had his last rehab start. Was it on Saturday or was that the previous Saturday?
I think it was Saturday again. It might have been Friday. All I know is he threw 69 pitches. So
yeah, and they're saying that he has a bullpen session in Sacramento today to determine, quote, his next steps. So it's possible he, you know, might be back for one start before the All-Star break, but most likely not. It'll be after the All-Star break. Now, when it comes to Samardzija, I don't know what to say. We've pounded him into the ground so many times, Eric, and everybody keeps giving him excuses in these PCL starts, but he's just getting lit the F up. Cueto isn't, right?
Yeah,
but Shark is. Not. So you can't keep using the same excuse for one guy when the other guy is doing fine in his rehab starts, or other pitchers are doing fine when they're down there. You know, he gave up 7 hits, 6 runs, and 2 bombs in 4 innings pitched in his last start for Sacramento. And he's going to make his final rehab start for today with a likely return to the rotation versus the Cardinals. And you listed it right here in the notes, man. And then they've been talking about it on KMBR and on Twitter and in the articles. What do they do with these young guys who are just carrying the team right now?
I mean, how do you kick Derek Rodriguez and Andrew Suarez out of the rotation? It just seems counterproductive. You know, the thing is, in baseball, we know this. Big contracts like Sharks, they're going to get certain preferential treatment because they're a big contract. And he's in the 3rd year of a 5-year deal. So the Giants are going to do everything in their power to get him back on the mound. It has to be in a starting capacity because nobody can trust him to be a middle reliever when the first inning is the inning he gets blown up the most.
Yes.
So you can't expect him to come in and be a fireballer. And there's been a ton of talk across social media about DFA and eat the contract and this, and they're not going to do that.
No.
They're just not going to do that.
There's too much time left on the contract. That's not going to happen.
So there's going to have to be some shuffling and juggling, and we might actually see somebody like Rodriguez go back down to the minors so that he can continue to keep getting starts. Cueto's the key. Cueto, when he comes back, he really puts the shuffle on because guys like Holland, you know, Holland hasn't had the best stats, but he always seems to give the Giants a chance to win. And we know Bochy loves his veterans. Stratton is the guy that I think is kind of the odd man out.
Yeah.
He's struggled a bit lately. He scuffled against the Rockies in that loss last Thursday, and he pitches again in Colorado on Tuesday. And you have to wonder if Stratton will be the guy shifted to the bullpen because he's shown he can do that role before. He started out in the bullpen last year. He was the long man. And if they can slide him over there and put Shark in to the rotation, I think that's what they do. And then I think when Cueto comes back, I honestly think Rodriguez is the one that is on the outside looking in. And it's a shame because, like you said, he has been dominant. I mean, he threw 7 shutout innings. The Giants shut out Arizona on Saturday night for their 10th shutout of the season. The Giants have shut out teams 10 times this year. Yeah. That's almost a fourth of their wins. And he needs to get the reps because if Rodriguez gets shifted to the bullpen, he's just going to languish. I mean, a guy like that, he obviously feeds off of his last start and the guys around him. And it was really nice to see yesterday when Posey was out. He was on the bench, and the three guys lined up next to him on the rail all game long were Rodriguez, Suarez, and Stratton. Mm-hmm. And they were just picking his brain and picking his brain and picking his brain. And for as much as Samardzija is Samardzija, they're going to trot him out there. They have to. He's not going to the minors. He's not going to, I mean, maybe another phantom injury will pop up, maybe. But I think Cueto is when the really big decision comes. And today's bullpen is supposed to determine that. And I'm kind of confused about that. I mean, the guy just pitched in a live game. Why do they need the bullpen session? 2 days late. I was
asking myself the same question. I don't know if it has to do with durability of his finger for like blisters or what. I honestly don't know because, he's been pitching fine in his relatively short, rehab starts. I would think he's good to go, but maybe I know they're not trying to stave off a decision between the rookies because they want Cueto back more than Shark right now for sure.
Absolutely.
But Shark, of course, is, I guess, quote, on track to come back a little bit sooner than Cueto potentially. I agree with you. I think that when Shark comes back, if it is this week, it looks like no matter what the result is with his last rehab start, it's like, okay, he can give up 20 runs. It doesn't matter. They're still going to get him back. I agree with you. I was thinking, it's either going to be Stratton or Holland going to the bullpen. Johnson will go back down, and Shark will replace one of those two in the rotation. The hard decision comes with Cueto, which they clearly need him back. But who do they jettison at that point? And with the rookies, it's hard because they've been on such a streak right now. You don't want to diminish their reps, so sending them down isn't the worst thing in the world. And so if that does happen, I think you just choose one of them. I don't know how many options Stratton has left on his, but I know that Rodriguez and Suarez definitely have options left. So you can send one of those down, and they still get their reps. And I was going to say the same thing. If Shark just doesn't produce, if he's just getting blown up again after 2-3 starts, I do think it's a phantom injury. They got to do something if that happens because they're in the thick of it right now. And the guys at the top, the brass, they're not just sitting there going, well, I know Shark's given up 20 runs over his last 3 starts, but we just got to keep pitching him. I mean, they got to come up with something because he can't lose every 5th game for the Giants if that's what ends up happening. They just can't. That's just going to kill their chances of competing for the West. And these rookies have shown, at least lately, over their last 10 combined starts, when the Giants have gone 8-2 with those great stats, that they have at least the capacity to do it in the short term. And who knows how long they can continue. I mean, it could be that Shark goes down with a phantom injury or real injury, and one of these guys gets blown up anyway, and it's a moot point. But you don't know, right? You just don't know. And Shark has had enough consistency in being inconsistent. It's an oxymoron there. Where I don't expect any good things from Shark. I expect him to have one good start out of 5. After that, nothing. I just expect every start to be bad. People have been, like you said, suggesting he goes to the bullpen. Some people have even suggested on KMBR, which is just fun because they love to take the crazy callers, that he be a closer because he can throw 95, 96, and he's got that stuff. And, of course, the first statement you have right against those people is like, oh, yeah, a 1-run lead. You want Shark coming in the 9th. Who gives up the most home runs out of anyone on the Giants? Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Let's get him in there and just give up a game-tying gopher ball right away. So those aren't options. Neither would it be because of his contract. That's not what he's specialized to do, nor has he ever really done that in his career. So it's a tough predicament. I'm excited about Cueto coming back because, again, if he gets injured again, we can't help anything about that. But in the meantime, he just seems to be consistent right now, consistently good, and that's what they need right now.
Yeah, Rodriguez has all of his options left, so he can go down, no problem. They can move him like they need to. I think what's going to happen, you remember Barry Zito didn't even make the postseason roster in 2010? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think Shark's under a similar situation, and it's funny, the Giants with these bad pitcher contracts. And you've talked to Samardzija. He's an intelligent, thoughtful individual who is a great clubhouse presence.
Yeah,
but that only goes so far. And I think that the only way he would be willing to take a demotion to the bullpen, he would have to go back down to the minors again and totally change his mentality. Because Shark does let it loose in the first inning as much as he lets it loose in the seventh inning. So there'd have to be some adjustments made, and it's just not that simple. There's way too many moving parts. I hate cringing to see what's going to happen when he comes back. But that's kind of how we all are right now. Thankfully, The Cardinals are playing like crap lately, so hopefully that'll factor into this weekend. But they don't need Samardzija to eat up the innings like they used to. You got guys like Rodriguez going 7. The Giants have had pitchers pitch deep in the games lately, and the bullpen is not as taxed anymore. So they don't even need him to save that. I mean, I think Shark threw the most innings in baseball last year. And this year, it's just it's so tough to know what to do going forward. I mean, who knows? He might come out and he might mow everybody down. But, I mean, we're all from Missouri. Show me.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into who's hot and who's not. And I decided this time I'm going to play a couple of clips for some of these guys. So here's the first guy I want to talk about on who's not. Or who's hot, I should say. Who's not. I'm not going to show. Wouldn't that be great, doing lowlights for guys who are who's not? Here's another strikeout. Yes, you want
And
to hear
Austin
this.
Jackson swings at the 1-2 pit. No, sorry.
We should do that for the Dodgers. Okay, anyway, first clip.
Pence stands in with the tying run at third, the potential winning run at second, and 1 out. On the ground, down the line, and this game is over. Unbelievable.
Of course, that was the great walk-off 74-mile-an-hour almost bunt single past the first baseman by Hunter Pence with the bases loaded to beat the Padres. That was great. It was one of those magical moments that Hunter Pence and the Giants both needed, and it was fantastic. He also contributed in yesterday's win against the Diamondbacks.
Bullet to left, and a fair ball. Slater scores. Here comes Panic. They're going to wave him in. Here's the throw home. Not in time. Pence standing on second like he does it all the time.
Like he does it all the time. I love that. That's great. So, yeah, his limited action lately hasn't been great in terms of playing time, but he's 6 for his last 16, including those 2 big hits. So he's been hot. Another guy I want to highlight right here.
High drive. Right field. It is out of here. And this game is over.
The ball game is over, and Brandon Crawford has defeated the wind in right field, and the Giants come out of the dugout to jump on the back of their teammate Brandon Crawford, who goes deep against a left-hander who had just been brought into the game to face him. And Crawford launches a soaring shot, and the Giants have won this game, a classic 1-0 over the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, so that was awesome. Oh my God, that was awesome. Were you watching when that happened?
Yeah, I actually woke the dogs up with that one. It was, I mean, Bumgarner. That was the night Bumgarner threw 7 scoreless and looked so sharp. Like, it was funny because I wasn't feeling well that night, and I really kind of just wanted the Giants to jump out to a lead and kind of doze off. And then Bum started rolling, and there was the possibility of a no-hitter. And then Cargo hit a double to break that up, and Bum looked fantastic that day. He had everybody off balance. He was working his cutter in and out. And it was like his buddy Crawford came to pick him up. And when are these teams going to figure out that it doesn't matter if it's a left-hander or a right-hander? Stop bringing in lefties to face Crawford.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It's not working,
gonna
is
hit
it?
him no matter what. Now, I'm trying to pull up the stats right now, but it doesn't seem to matter. Crawford is hitting lefties. He's hitting righties. It's versus the left-handed pitchers this year. He's got a 286 batting average, and 5 of his 10 home runs have come off of left-handed pitchers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're not getting the splits that they think they're getting.
No, I think it's just a traditional thinking. That's all. But Crawford has probably had poor splits in the past, but he's a different beast this year after raising his elbows and wrists a little bit, as was indicated earlier this year by Pablo and others. Who was it?
Gregor Blanco.
Yeah,
Blanco, that's going to be Gregor Blanco's contribution to the 2018 team. Thank you. You made the club. Sorry. And Blanco's a great example of the Giants showing that if a guy's not working, they will demote him or get rid of him.
Yeah.
But that's going to end up being Gregor Blanco's biggest contribution. And it shows. I mean, how many times have we seen Crawford hit the ball the other way with authority? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not just, dinking the ball over the third baseman. He's barreling balls and sending them to the gap. He's hitting 100-mile-an-hour shots out to the left center field gap. Granted, the home run that won the game was to right field. But, he said it in the interview. I was looking middle in. He had a 2-0 count, so he knew he could sit middle in at that time. Mm-hmm. And, the pitcher, I can't remember who the pitcher was. The pitcher gave him that pitch, and he went with it. And it just shows how much smarter he is as a hitter. And that is, shows in his results on the team. Because, it doesn't matter. Facing lefties, facing righties, he's getting the job done this season.
So, he's 12 for his last 30. That's a 400 clip. And, of course, that huge highlight there. He's just been money this year, leading the All-Stars in the shortstop position. So we all know what he's doing this year. It's been fantastic. We also have Austin Slater since his call-up. He's 9 for 22, hitting .409. So, I think I agree with you. I would like to see him play a little more consistently. But, his contributions have been wonderful, including those 2 RBI doubles for that 2-1 victory over Arizona the other day. And then the 2 lefties in the bullpen. I mean, these guys, Eric, have just been money lights out. You had Will Smith coming in, as I mentioned earlier, closing down the door after Melanson couldn't, and getting the second save of his career. And it seems like he likes this position, but, he's over his last 14 and 2/3 innings pitched, he's only given up 1 run. He's got a .62 or a 620 batting average against. It's .062 batting average against, and 23 Ks in those 14 and 2/3 innings. Just dominant stuff. And then, his brethren in the bullpen, Tony Watson, has not allowed a single run over his last 14 and a third. He has an .070 batting average against with 16 Ks. So these guys have been key in these victories, holding down what you noted earlier, being the great starting pitching that the Giants have been exhibiting lately.
Yeah, and you watch, when a guy like Tony Watson or Will Smith comes into the game, you just feel better. It's like, I can't believe I'm using 2010 again, but it's like when the Giants got Javi Lopez in 2010.
Yes.
It was like such a revelation that a left-hander could do it. And then him and Affel just took over. And it's almost like they have the carbon copy of that, but better. I love Javi. Javi had great stats. Jeremy had so-so stats. He just, came through in some clutch situations. But Will Smith, the guy's faced 89 batters this season, and he's only allowed 10 hits. He's striking out almost 5 batters for every walk he's giving up. He's got 34 strikeouts and 7 walks on the season. Tony Watson, 41 strikeouts, 7 walks on the season. His strikeout to walk ratio is even bigger. It's the calming effect that the Giants need in the back end of the bullpen. And the bullpen was one of the things that we were concerned about, because coming into the year, Will Smith was projected to come back May 1st. We knew Tony was a great addition, but everything else was kind of up in the air. And I think I think Bochy is going to have to relent and just give Will Smith the closing job until Hunter Strickland gets back.
Yeah.
Because we can see that Sam Dyson is not the answer there. We know Mark Melanson isn't the answer there, primarily because Melanson hasn't pitched back-to-back days yet. And if you can't pitch back-to-back days, you can't be a closer, because they're going to need you to come in to 2 games back-to-back. Smith pitched 1/3 of an inning last night, so I'm sure he's absolutely fine to go tonight. But Melanson, he faced those 5 batters, and I guarantee you we won't see Melanson come in tonight.
No, not at all. I totally agree with you. I think Will Smith is the way to go right now, because Sam Dyson has shown that overall his stats aren't that bad, but he isn't quite there. I know he's been a successful reclamation project from the Rangers, and I'm happy for him, and I'm happy the Giants have him because he's been valuable, but he's just not the closer right now. I agree with Melanson. He just can't go back-to-back yet, so they can't even consider him. And until Will Smith proves otherwise, he's just been so dominant. And granted, Watson and Smith, for the most part, of this year, just like the Affeldt-Lopez combo, they come in to specialty situations, lefty against lefty, most of the time. And in a closer situation, you might face 3 righties in a row. And so that could, present a challenge to him. But until he shows consistent failure in that, I'd say that's what you do. You got to do that.
The guy who comes into the mix there is Reyes Maranta. Reyes Maranta has a 152 batting average against for the season. And he has started I remember in the first month of the season, he had a couple outings. It was just like, oh my God, but he's gotten it back together. And I think between Maranta and Smith, they can control that on the back end of the bullpen. The difference between Dyson and Melanson and those other 3 guys, Watson, Smith, and Maranta, is Watson, Smith, and Maranta, when they miss, they're missing out of the zone. If they're looking for an inside location, they're missing inside. Whereas if Melanson's looking for an inside location, his ball drifts back over the plate, and he's missing over the plate. And Dyson, he showed, especially in the LeMahieu at bat, you can't miss over the plate against good hitters. And that's the main difference to me, is when these guys are missing their spots, they're missing out of the zone, so they're not getting hurt. And those are those key little differences that are happening right now, and they're bearing fruit in the numbers. And I hope they stick with this. I think it could be Strickland's job when he comes back, but we got another 4 weeks, so we got to worry about that.
Yeah. As far as who's not, hey, when the Giants are hot, there's not many who are not. So we got Alan Hansen, he's 2 for his last 16. Okay, small sample size. He had a big hit, though, one of those 2. So it almost produced a victory over the Rockies when they went back ahead in the bottom of the 8th. It's a big hit. And then Stratton, Dyson, and Melanson have all been kind of hit hard in their last appearances. Again, we talked about Melanson. There were a couple hits that really were kind of bad luck hits. But overall, the who's not list isn't too long. I don't know if you had anyone else that you wanted to highlight, but or low light in this case.
No, well, like I said, Panic and Posey had both been kind of scuffling, and they both kind of picked it up over the weekend. So the Giants, nobody's too high and nobody's too low at the moment, and it's proved to be a good mix and match. Yeah. You mentioned it. You listed here Stratton, Dyson, and Melanson, and we've pretty much talked about all of them and their struggles. There's nobody that when they come in to pitch that it's – Corey Guerin, it used to be him, and he gets flamed a ton. But, then he comes through with an inning, getting an out like he did to Goldschmidt yesterday, and it's kind of like, okay, you did what you needed to do, and it's hard to keep him on the who's not list when he does something. Hansen, I'm with you there. He seems to struggle more when he has to hit from the right side of the plate. And I hope he gets more starts against right-handed pitching, because his left-handed swing is definitely better. And I hope that this is not an indication of a downturn. I hope it's just a bump in the road.
All right, so I added a little section here I thought would be fun, but on this date in Giants history, July 2nd, 1963, Juan Marichal outdueled Warren Spahn in a 16-inning thriller, 1-0. Of course, this is probably very familiar to most Giants fans as being in the legend and lore of Giants history. It was a good 10 years before I was born, but could you imagine pitchers today? Obviously this hasn't happened since that time period, but each guy going 16 innings of shutout ball or almost shutout ball until Willie Mays walked it off with 1 out in the bottom of the 16th at Candlestick. Holy crap, dude. It's insane. It's insane. It's fun looking at the box score from that game.
There's so much to pull from this game. Marichal threw 227 pitches. Spahn threw 201. And here's the thing. Warren Spahn in this game, he only struck out 2 batters. In 15 and a third, he only struck out 2 batters. He struck out Willie Looking in the bottom of the first inning, and he struck out Marichal in the bottom of the 15th to send the game to the 16th inning. So it's kind of bonkers to me to think that there wasn't this overpowering strikeouts. Marichal had 10 Ks in the game, and you spread that out over 16 innings. What is that? 16 times 3, 32, 48 outs, and only 10 of them were strikeouts. That's impressive. And then you pull out the fact that Willie won it with a walk-off. Willie Mays is the only player in the history of baseball to hit a home run in every inning 1 through 18.
No kidding. What a fun stat that is.
Okay, Willie Mays hit 18 career home runs off Warren Spahn, the most against any pitcher. Willie's first home run was against Warren Spahn in May of 1951. Willie started his career 0 for 12. And then after Leo told him, nope, you're my starting center fielder, Mays hit a homer off Spahn that went out of the Polo Grounds. I grew up hearing these stories. That went out of the Polo Grounds to, I guess, jumpstart his career. And in this game, on July 2nd, 1963, the Braves had a chance to score in the fourth inning. I believe it was the fourth inning. I'm scrolling back up. There it is, top of the fourth inning. Willie threw out Norm Larker at home plate to secure the shutout and got the only outfield assist of the game. So Willie's fingerprints were on that game just as much as Marichel's. And the other story that I know that came out of that game is Marichel went down and sat on the other side of the dugout from the manager. I can't even remember who the manager was at this time. I think it might have been Dark. But he went and sat on the other side of the dugout so that the manager wouldn't pull him out of the game. So when Spahn got through the bottom half of his inning in the 14th and the 15th, Marichel just sprinted out to the mound so that he couldn't get taken out of the game. He just wanted to keep going. And Spahn, I think Spahn was like 40 at this time, which is even more impressive in and of itself.
Well, he went on to lead the National League in 1963 with 22 complete games, and both pitchers made their scheduled start 5 days later after this one.
Teams don't even have 22 complete games in a season anymore.
No, 22 by one dude, and he was 40.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Juan Marichel had a game score of 112. Now, just to quickly unpack game score starts at 50, and then you get points added for outs and strikeouts and all that, which is, I believe, the second best game score of all time behind 114 game score. And just to put in perspective, Kerry Wood has the best game score for a 9-inning game at 105 for that 20 strikeout performance he had in 98. So Marichel was even better than that in a sense that day.
Right.
Only gave up 4 walks. 4 walks, 16 innings, and you only walk 4. 8 hits. He scattered 8 hits.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest games in the history of baseball, and this is the 55th anniversary of it.
Yeah, 55th anniversary of it. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, and look at the Giants lineup that day. You got Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Felipe Alou, Orlando Cepeda. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Marichel was no slouch with the bat either. And you look at the other side, Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, and I guess those are the two best for the Braves, and they were all kept in check. And here's the other thing. The game took 4 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that here. 4 hours and 10 minutes, yep. Yeah, 17 hits total in the game.
That doesn't happen anymore.
And just 2 errors in the game, too.
The Giants played a 9-inning game yesterday that almost lasted 4 hours. These things just don't happen. And I literally grew up hearing stories about this game. I'll never forget my father telling me about it, and Warren Spahn and Juan Marichel matched pitch for pitch, and they did. But, key plays happened. Willie throwing the guy out at the plate, it never would have gotten to that point if he didn't do that. Nothing like that will ever happen again.
Nope, we're past that time. Just like, 56-game hitting streak, all those things. But even that is technically possible today. It's just never going to happen where guys are going to pitch 227 pitches or pitch 16 innings. That is just never, ever, ever going to happen, ever again. Doesn't matter if you get a super genetic freak that comes up and proves he can do it, because in college he had, he pitched 17 innings in 2 days or something like that during the College World Series. It's just not going to happen. They cost too much money. They're an investment for these teams. They micromanage their pitch counts, their wear and tear. It was just a different game back in the day. It wasn't the same kind of money that it is now, and so you don't have the same investments and the shareholders and all the buyers and owners and all that stuff. It's just they would freak out if Madison Bumgarner had 9 shutout innings against Clayton Kershaw and then pitched the 10th and then the 11th and then the 12th and then the 13th. People would be freaking out in a bad way. They'd be like, his arm's going to fall off. You're going to kill his career. So you're never going to see that. Fantastic, though, to look back on that stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's a great little thing. And I don't know if you saw, Paris Hilton put out a "Tell Me Something I Don't Know" tweet. So I shared with her that Warren Spahn and Juan Marichel Pat Hilton.
Well, something I'm sure she didn't know, and she still doesn't care about. But,
No. It's just funny because you see those tweets go around. It's almost like a meme at this point.
Yeah. All right, so coming up, the Giants are going to have 3 more in Colorado, or 3 in Colorado, starting tonight with Madison Bumgarner. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Thursday, the Cardinals roll into town to help close out the homestand with the Cubs after that. I might be, and the A's, I should say, after that. It's a long homestand. I think I might be going to the game on Sunday. I'm going to be going up to San Francisco with my family for a little fun, and we might be going to the game on Sunday. And before I go on a very long research cruise here in a couple of weeks, I might actually be attending one of the A's games. But in both capacities, probably as a fan and not media, much to my chagrin. But I'm sure I'll have fun.
I think that would be the day Sharks starts.
Sunday?
Yeah, because if you look at the rotation, it's Bum tonight, Stratton tomorrow. So that means Bum would pitch Saturday, and then Stratton's turn would come up against on Sunday. So you might be getting the Jeff Samardzija experience.
Oh, boy. I don't know if I want that. I might tell my kids I don't want to go to the game, but I'm just kidding.
We're still fans.
Still want to go, of course. But you can find us, as always, on torchcast.com. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't need to tell you where to find it. I always love hearing that. You can follow us on Twitter collectively at TortureCast, or individually at ChadK21 for myself, at 2OutHits, that's with the number 2 for Eric. Also, you can like us on Facebook. Now, I know Eric was mentioning to me, he's got a little side endeavor he's starting, and so I wanted to give him an opportunity to promote that.
When the All-Star break comes, it's funny because, like you said, you're going on the research vessel. It's like the exact same timing. But when the All-Star break comes, I'm going to start my own podcast focused on the National League. So Giants fans who want to hear about how the rest of the National League is going, and I don't know if it's going to be a weekly, a daily, a twice a week just yet. Still working out the kinks because I'm not the most technical of guys. But I'm going to primarily focus on the National League because, as I have mentioned on this podcast plenty, I watch a lot of Cubs games as well. I have a wife who's a Cubs fan. I grew up in Chicago. So I see a lot of National League baseball. So I will primarily be focusing on the National League. So, there'll be times where I'll do podcasts where the Giants won't even be mentioned. And there's times where I'm sure that I'll talk about the Giants. But look for starting July 16th, which I probably will be running down the Home Run Derby since that's that night. 2 Out Hits the podcast will probably be up. And I don't know about any writing between now and then. Who knows? With the heat like this, my brain is mush as it is. So... I don't know how many, but, we'll keep chugging along here because this is my home for Giants baseball.
I think that sounds like fun. I'm kind of looking forward to listening to see how you structure it and talk about it. There have definitely been a lot of podcasts I've wanted to do kind of either solo or with other people that I have, casual or strong interests in. It's been anything from like politics to science and skeptical viewpoints of certain, things in the world to why the F is this going on in the world? Just, a whole variety of things. I just don't have the time to do it, but I'm always curious when other people have those endeavors and see how they tackle those things. So look forward to that from Eric. But in the meantime, I'm glad that you listened to episode 146. We'll be back next week. Maybe on Monday or Tuesday. Eric and I will schedule it out for episode 147. Until then, we'll see you next time. Boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.